friend. All right, let's look at another one. Unlike my brother, I spent my childhood reading stories. This time, our word is unlike, and notice where it is, right at the start of the sentence. So what do you think this one's doing? Exactly. Unlike is the total opposite of like. Its whole job is to point out a difference. So the sentence is basically saying, hey, what I did as a kid, reading, was not what my brother did. It's setting up a really clear contrast between us. And here's our last one for this section. Today, I dream of becoming a writer, whereas he wants to be a football player. See how whereas is sitting right there in the middle? It's like a bridge connecting two totally different ideas. So whereas is also all about showing a difference, just like unlike, but, and this is a big but, it plays by a whole different set of grammar rules. And figuring out those rules, well, that's exactly what we're diving into next. All right, we've seen them in action. Now it's time to look under the hood. This is where we learn the golden rules that will help you use these words perfectly every single time. Okay, let's tackle Rule A, which covers both like and unlike. These guys are what we call prepositions. Look at the formula. It's super simple. It's just like or unlike plus a noun or pronoun. That's it. For example, unlike my brother. Now, the next part is key. This little phrase does not have a main verb. And finally, check out the position rule. This is a big one for punctuation. If you stick it in the middle of a sentence, no comma needed. But if you start your sentence with it, you absolutely have to put a comma right after the phrase. Don't forget that comma. And hey, here's a little pro tip for you. You can add a bit more flavor to your sentences. Take a look. I am outgoing, unlike my sister. That's 100% correct. But if you want to add more detail, you can say, unlike my sister who is shy. See that? Adding that little extra bit of information just makes your comparison more vivid. It's a nice little touch. All right, let's switch gears to Rule B, which is all about whereas. Now, this word is a totally different animal. It's a conjunction, which is just a fancy word for a connector. And here's the crucial part. It connects two complete sentences or clauses. Each side has to have its own subject and verb. See the example? You have I dream on one side and he wants on the other. Whereas just links them together, and it almost always hangs out in the middle with a comma right before it. Okay, Section 4, practice makes perfect. We've gone through the examples, we've learned the rules. You know what that means. It's time to put it all to the test. This is where we make sure all this information really sticks. Here we go, Task 1. You've got 3 sentences on your screen with a blank in each. For number 1, think about it. We're showing a difference between two people. For number 2, look closely. Are those two full sentences being connected? And for number 3, we're showing something that's the same. Go ahead, pause right here if you need to, and fill in those blanks. All right, how did you do? Let's see the answers. For number 1, it's unlike. We're contrasting two different people. For number 2, it has to be whereas. Why? Because we're connecting two complete clauses. And number 3 is like, since we're talking about a shared dream, a similarity. See how those rules just snap right into place? Awesome. Ready for round 2? Let's do it. For this task, you're going to combine each pair of sentences into one single, beautiful sentence using the word provided. So remember the big question. Are you just comparing two nouns, or are you connecting two full sentences? That'll tell you how to build it. Give it a shot. And here are the answers. Number 1 becomes, he is smart like his sister. Simple enough. Number 2, I am not chatty, unlike my friend. Perfect contrast. Now, number 3 is the big one. I am organized and tidy, whereas my brother is disorganized and messy. See? 2 complete sentences joined together. And the last one, I am outgoing, unlike my sister. You guys are crushing this. Fantastic work.
All right, Section 5. Now it's your turn. We've done a bunch of practice together, but now, well, now it's your turn to fly solo. This is where you really make this knowledge your own.
So here's your mission. I want you to write a short paragraph about you and your best friend. What do you have in common? What makes you totally different? Your challenge is to use like, unlike, and whereas correctly at least one time each. This is honestly the best way to make sure you'll remember this stuff. And hey, if you feel like sharing, drop your paragraph in the comments below. And there you have it. You now have 3 powerful tools in your English toolbox to express yourself more clearly and precisely. So the real question is, how are you going to use them to describe the important people in your life? Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and happy writing!
Welcome! In this guide, we are going to master a very specific yet crucial grammatical structure, how we describe an action that was interrupted by another in the past. So, let's outline our approach. We will begin by establishing the core concept of interrupted actions. From there, we'll analyze the two specific tenses required for this structure. Then, we'll examine the connectors that join them. And finally, we'll practice constructing some complex sentences. We will conclude with a recap of the core rule. So, let's begin with our first section, where we'll establish the foundational concept at play here. Now take a look at this sentence. It perfectly illustrates the scenario we are discussing. You have a longer, ongoing action, reading a story, and then a shorter, more sudden action, my friend called, which occurred right in the middle of it. And that's the crucial point to grasp. It's about the relationship between these two events. We're not just listing things that happened in the past. We are describing a specific dynamic where a continuous background action is intersected by a brief, more immediate one. Understanding this dynamic is absolutely key to using the correct tenses. All right, that brings us to section 2. Now that we understand the scenario we're describing, let's look at the grammatical tools we need to actually build these sentences. First up is the past simple tense. Now, its function in this specific structure is very precise. It signals the interrupting event. Think of it as the action that marks a single, completed point on the timeline, the one that breaks the continuity of that longer background activity. For what we call regular verbs, forming the past simple is quite straightforward. We typically just add an ed suffix to the base form of the verb. You can see the consistent pattern here with words like visited and entered. However, it's very important to remember that many of the most common verbs in English are irregular. Their past forms don't follow that simple ed rule. Verbs like to be becoming was or were, or to break becoming broke. These forms simply must be memorized through practice and correct application. Okay, so what about that background action? For the longer activity that was already in progress, we use the past continuous tense. The very structure of this tense, combining was or were with a verb ending in ing, is specifically designed to convey a sense of duration, of an action unfolding over a period of time in the past. And here, we can see the 3 primary spelling rules for adding that ing ending. The general rule is simple, just add ing. But you have to be careful with verbs that end in a silent e. We drop the e before adding ing. And then there's the CVC, or consonant-vowel-consonant rule, for short verbs, where you double that final consonant. Excellent. So now we have our 2 distinct actions, and we have the 2 tenses we need to describe them. In section 3, we're going to look at the crucial words that connect them into a single cohesive sentence. This table draws a very clear distinction between our 2 main connectors, while and when. Notice their specific roles. While is used with the past continuous tense. It introduces that long, ongoing action. Conversely, when is used with the past simple tense to introduce the short, interrupting action. So, a simple way to remember it, while signals duration and when signals a specific point in time. It's also critical to recognize that a single ongoing action can be interrupted by a series of short, consecutive actions. In that case, each of those interrupting actions would be expressed in the past simple tense, creating a clear narrative sequence. So now we move to application in section 4. We've examined all the components, now let's assemble them and analyze some complete, meaningful sentences to see how this all works in practice. Let's consider our first scenario. We need to combine these 2 ideas, the long action, to write the lesson, and the short interruption, the pencil to break. How do we correctly structure this? Let's analyze the construction. The long action, write, must be in the past continuous, so it becomes was writing. The short, interrupting action, break, needs the past simple, which is broke. This leads us to the final, grammatically correct sentence. While I was writing the lesson, my pencil broke. The structure perfectly reflects the sequence of events. Now for a more complex example. Here, we have one long, background action which is to study. But this time, it's interrupted by 2 consecutive short actions, the headmaster to enter the room and then to tell me something. Let's see how we handle this sequence. Let's break this down. The ongoing background action, studying, is correctly conjugated in the past continuous, was studying. Then, the 2 interrupting events, entered and told, follow each other in sequence. Notice that both are in the past simple tense. The structure clearly communicates that one thing happened, and then another, both interrupting the study session.
All right, let's construct one final sentence from these components. The long action is he to revise, and the interrupting event is the phone to ring. How do we put these together?
And here is the result. The revision, being the long action, becomes was revising in the past continuous. The phone call, a short interruption, uses the past simple form rang. And notice here, we use the connector when to introduce that short action, perfectly illustrating the rule we discussed earlier.
And that brings us to our final section, Section 5. Here, we are going to consolidate everything we've learned by recapping the single core principle you need to remember.
This is the fundamental takeaway. Each of these two tenses has a distinct and complementary function. You must use the past continuous for the longer, background action, and the past simple for the shorter action that interrupts it. If you remember that one core rule, you will master this structure.
By adhering to this rule, we gain the ability to describe significant moments, like this example of academic achievement, with incredible precision. The grammar itself tells a story. It establishes a setting, I was sitting in the classroom, and then highlights a pivotal event that changed the scene. It gives our descriptions narrative clarity and depth.
All right, let's jump right in. You know, we often think of grammar as just a bunch of boring rules, right? But what if it's actually a toolkit, a way to tell the story of who we are right now and maybe more importantly, who we're going to become? Today, we're going to unlock two of the most powerful tools for doing exactly that, the present simple and the future simple. So, to really see how these tenses work in real life, let's follow the story of a student named Muad. By taking a look at his life and his dreams, we're going to see exactly how English gives us the power to talk about our present and our future. Okay, let's start right here. This sentence, it tells us something really important about Muad's character. It's not about what he did yesterday or what he's doing tomorrow. It describes who he is right now. This is a perfect example of the present simple tense, just describing his personality as it is today. And check this out. This shows us how we talk about habits, about routines. See those words? Every afternoon, he helps, he practices, he enjoys. These things are a part of his regular, everyday life. They're his habits. And the present simple? It's the perfect tool for talking about these kinds of consistent actions. So we're getting a really good picture of who Muad is today, right? But, you know, that's only half the story. What about his dreams, his ambitions? To talk about that, we need to completely switch gears and grab a different tool from our toolkit. And here it is. This sentence literally transports us into the future. The key clues are right there, in the future, and, more importantly, will become. See, we're not talking about his life right now anymore, we're talking about his future goal. This is exactly where the future simple comes into play. And this is all about what he's planning to do. These aren't things he does every day. Well, not yet anyway. They are his plans for the future. So, when he becomes a teacher, he will explain the tough rules, he will make his classes fun, and he will inspire his students. Every single one of these is a promise about a future action, and we use the future simple to do it. Okay, so we've seen these two tenses in action through Muad's story. Let's kind of zoom out now and make the big difference between them crystal clear. It really just boils down to one simple idea. Are we talking about now, or are we talking about later? So let's break it down with this little chart. On the left side, you've got now, and for that, we use the present simple. This is for talking about your personality, who you are, and your habits, what you do all the time. Then, on the right, for later, we use the future simple. This is for all the cool stuff, your dreams, your future goals, your career plans. It's really that straightforward, now versus later. Now that we get the why, let's dig into the how. How do we actually build these sentences? We'll start with the rules for talking about the present. Think of this as getting your toolkit all organized for talking about right now. And I've got good news for you. For a lot of these, it is super easy. If you're using I, you, we, or they, you just use the verb as it is, the base form. No changes, no nothing. I help, you learn,